Just get out of the come on for everybody. Where I live's like 5 minutes from the beach, and it's just
We're on the book now.
Record. Hello. No glasses.
I'm cleaning them so I can see Joe clearly.
Hey, Dix.
Hello, everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Hello.
So excited. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Deborah. How you doing?
Good. I came to see your package.
Oh, dear.
What?
I'm not touching that.
Is that inappropriate?
I say pantomime
I'm
is dead.
American. I don't know what's going on.
Translation, I think. That was lost in translation.
If I said it to Joe, it would be really inappropriate, but, you know.
What? I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Yeah.
I was at an event a few years ago that included some colleagues from the States, and during the event, I was asking one of the guys from the States, "How you getting on? You seem to be doing okay there." He said, "No," he said, "they're really rude." He said, "One woman blew me off on the middle of the stand."
Oh yeah, might mean something different to you than to us.
She didn't. She did.
That's hysterical.
There'll be no blowing off here. Right, Milo, are we just about ready?
No, we can crack on. Yeah, we can start now. I think it's a good starting point.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This, I think, is our 30th session. Although we're down to one session during COVID-19, and as things have got busier, we've eased down just purely because of workload at our end. So welcome. The idea of doing this is to bring everyone together, get everyone talking together, making sure everyone's Marco, I'm just going to put you on mute because there's background noise coming. There we go. I fixed you by shutting you up. Thank you. So the idea is just to keep everyone together. We try and make it interesting, and we've been very fortunate to have some really good speakers coming along and talking to us. And it's an open forum. We've got some Q&As. Today we're joined by Jo Stephenson, who is a great lady, very informed in the world of packaging. She knows all about everyone's packages. So what we'll do is we'll ask Jo some questions. If you've got any questions, please use the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat on the sidelines as well. And then towards the end, we'll open it up and we'll start talking. If we can just give everyone the benefit of being able to ask any questions, I'm sure we're all going to get a lot of information from today. So without further ado, Milo.
Hello, thank you very much. Everyone knows Jo, I think, but just to make sure that, you know, for some people who may not know her for some reason, which would be really odd, but just in case, Jo, can you please tell us a little about yourself? Just a little introduction, please.
Okay, so first, thank you for inviting me to do this. This is great, sort of focusing on the print side of the industry rather than always the packaging side. And sometimes it feels like the two sides don't mix and meet enough and learn from each other. So this is a great opportunity for us all to chat. But my background is I was with Dow Chemical for 14 years. So I kind of grew up with plastics in my vein, which is a little challenging nowadays, as you can imagine. I then was appointed to head of European marketing for Sun Chemical. So that's really where I started to learn about the packaging industry. I was involved both in packaging and sheet fed on the ink side. From there, I went to Limpact Group. So that's thermoforming of plastic packaging for predominantly the meat industry and sort of ambient and chilled applications. And then in 2014, I set up PhD Marketing, which is a specialist marketing agency focusing on print and packaging. And really the value proposition of that is we understand the industry. A lot of generic marketing agencies you go to, if you start talking about analog scrolls, they kind of look at you blankly. And we know our way around a press. We understand what's going on in the packaging and print industry, and we're able to help our clients accordingly. So that's where I'm at today. I'm working with a whole range of clients, everybody from Bob's to Esco through to Parkside Flexibles, Skymark, plus Repro Houses, both here in the UK and in Europe and Asia. I'm also a co-founder of Women in Packaging, which we won't get into today, Kelvin, because that dominated the last time I got involved. And in fact, my co-founder, Debbie, I think is on here as well, which is great. So we saw an issue in the packaging side of the industry in technical and leadership roles. So we set up Women in Packaging to develop networking events just like this. And then I'm also a non-exec director of a company called Aqueous Group that supplies specialty chemicals into print. And also I'm on the EFIA board, which is the Flexo Industry Association in the UK, which other than LIFO is the main print tech going into packaging today. So that's where I'm at. Busy girl,
Wow.
as you can
Yeah.
yeah.
True entrepreneur, as you could tell. Thank you very much. So why packaging? How come you got into it?
I fell into it like most people in the industry. I don't think I've met anybody yet that's got a qualification in packaging. You know, some of them got Institute of Packaging IOM 3 qualifications, and there's a few packaging technologists floating around. But other than that, most people have fallen in. Either there's been family members or they've come in through a different route. And to be honest, I'm a bit of a packaging geek. I love it. It made me giggle when you said, once you talked about sustainability, that's it. There's not much left to talk about. And actually, it's the opposite. If you look at glass, metal, folding carton, corrugate, flexibles, there's so many different trends in the market and so much going on that it's actually a really interesting space. And sustainability certainly compounded the situation of late. But I just found it interesting. And hence, I stayed with EFIA even when I went to Limpact Group, even though I'd moved into sort of plastics thermoforming industry, because I found the whole print and flexo printing side of it really interesting.
So how is it? How is the packaging market doing?
How is the packaging market? Okay, so we always talk about packaging. Unlike pure print, commercial print, it grows in line with GDP. So 50% of packaging today roughly goes into food and drink applications. So as long as you're eating and drinking, the packaging industry keeps going. The rest of the market is things like cosmetics, medical, pharma, and a bit of industrial packaging in there. But it is predominantly driven by the grocery sector. If 50% of all volume globally goes that route. Read into that then, COVID hits, and what we get is panic buying and complete destocking of supply chains into the packaging industry. So for those of you who attempted to do any home baking while you were on lockdown, you probably couldn't get hold of some flour. And the reason for that wasn't that the flour mills were shut down, it was that the paper bags that flour goes in are such a unique application for packaging nowadays, they couldn't keep up with demand, so flour disappeared from our shelves. And that was probably the worst case that we saw, but fundamentally the packaging industry has been fine, and I thank the food packaging industry every day for my living. The main challenge has actually been around new product development. To give context on that, with increasing retail complexity and competition, so as we've had a lot of brand upstarts as a result of things like Dragon's Den, everybody thinks they can release a product nowadays and get into the market, and the supply chain complexity that now exists between online and store shopping. Retailers have been extending their ranges, adding SKUs, doing more seasonal promotions, the old bog off offers and 3 for 2s to capture market share, capture shelf share. And that's gone on for years, to the point that the statistics now, and we love a few statistics, is that on average pre-COVID, a brand would be refreshed every 6.6 months, which is crazy. You know, if you go to the Brands Museum in London, you'll see the 1960s Heinz bean can, and then you'll see the 1970s Heinz bean can. Good luck now, it is every 6 months, but COVID stopped it. All the brands furloughed their marketing people. There was no new products coming out, or very limited new products coming out. Everything was about just getting stuff on shelf. So the industry's really kind of changed in the last 6 months in opposed to, we've got to go digital because it's all short run and, you know, fast turnaround. Yes, it's been fast turnaround, but it's been long run lengths of a reduced number of SKUs, which the printers have adored because they can just run their presses at full pelt, a bit like the old days. Most MPD projects have either been cancelled or postponed. You know, you'll see very limited new barbecue ranges in the supermarkets this summer, for example, when you're all rushing out with the hot weather tomorrow. And we're just hoping it starts to recover. The reason why we need it to recover, even though the printers are full, the packaging industry relies very heavily on the reprographics process. And there's a whole tier of industry handling artwork design and the repro process. And those guys have been struggling in particular. But other than that, we've escaped fairly well from the downturn. We've had no companies shut down, a few furloughing of staff, but it's been pretty good.
That's what I heard. Most of the time it was doing very well. So, but we are all pretty much 99% of the audiences comes from print industry. So can you tell us where the print and packaging comes together?
They come together at the printer. So the vast majority of, I call them printer converters. So a typical printer in the UK today, whether they're an independent or a group, they will source their art, design and repro, normally externally, some of them do it internally, and then they print and convert in-house. So they'll be printing a foil, a film, a sheet, whatever it is, and then actually converting it into the finished product. Some product goes off sometimes to external partners for converting in some way, but the vast majority of packaging is actually finished at the printer. It's an integrated process. And that's to an extent why Flexo as a process has been so key in this sector, because what you need is the ability to create short runs of different packaging formats. It's not a case of just printing a film and shipping it off to somewhere else to convert it into a snack bar pack, for example. The complete reel of product is ready to go at the point of the brand or the packer filler to then convert into or to fill with the product. So it's, yeah, the vast majority of the process is actually at the printer today.
Okay. So let's talk about the environment, as David wanted. Why is packaging the way it is, really? And, you know, it's surely bad as it
Why
is.
Bad? Why is packaging bad? And do you know what? That is the general view of the man on the street or the woman on the street, and it's actually the polar opposite. And I'm gonna say something that you'll all go, ugh, at, but packaging is fundamentally a green technology. It's designed to protect and preserve goods, so it minimizes waste. And I think if packaging was designed today as a new solution, we would all hold it up as the holy grail for you know, lowering the carbon footprint of society today. But the challenge we have with it is, I think historically we've over packaged products and it's given it a bad name. And consumers don't understand the role packaging has in the supply chain. So today, when you're getting your kiwis from, I don't know, the Caribbean islands, or you're getting avocados from the south of France, they've got to get here in a very fast time. The product degrades and you need packaging, be it primary, secondary or tertiary. So what I mean by that is packaging around the product in some way. You need a box normally, or some sort of pallet for it to be shipped in, and then typically there's tertiary packaging for the actual supply.
Hello?
Joe, you still...
Have we lost Joe?
Planet of eight, without packaging. And in fact, there is more food waste than there is packaging waste today. So we have focused in on packaging, and I think it's absolutely right that we challenge packaging design in the sense of ensuring that we minimize the resources we use in the first place, that we use as much recycled material as possible, that we ensure that we optimize the packaging to drive efficiency in the supply chain. And what I mean by that is that the packaging can process effectively to meet the needs of consumers, and you know, where we can use renewable materials and so forth, absolutely brilliant. But what we seem to have done, and I'm just going to say it, I blame the packaging industry for it itself, is we seem to have had Mexican guns at dawn in the industry, with everybody fighting with each other. So metal, glass, plastic, paperboard, corrugated board, all trying to sell their benefits to the outside world, but actually doing each other a disservice in not recognizing that packaging has a fundamentally sustainable role. And that's when the likes of the Daily Mail start to take an advantage, because we've lost the main argument, and I don't think we'll ever recover that. To the plastics point, I'm very pro plastics, and I know everybody will take a sharp intake of breath with that one, but if you look at the low let me give you a very simple analogy. The lighter the weight of a material, the lower its carbon footprint, right? So we get all paranoid about a bit of cling film on a product, or plastic around a cucumber, which is what everybody gets paranoid, but it's incredibly low carbon footprint, very, very low material usage. And what we're seeing today is, or we were seeing pre-COVID, was a lot of knee-jerk reactions to the media pressure, which meant we were actually choosing worse environmental alternatives than what was already designed. And I think sometimes they think these companies are stupid. These products are highly engineered. They're having to run down lines at 300 packs a minute or survive the rigors of a global supply chain. And yet that's just completely missed. And we can end up with, I don't know, a plastic being moved to a renewable for a chilled application, for example. I'm seeing lots of chilled applications converting to paperboard at the moment. And some of these products are fantastic, but the initial runs that went out there, you know, carton board at the end of the day is hydrophilic, not hydrophobic, and will absorb moisture. So you have to integrate coatings, you have to integrate plastics to give it a moisture barrier. So, sorry, I'm rambling, but it's actually the polar opposite in the packaging world. And yes, I've got my packaging hat on, but I think we don't sell the science terribly well as an industry, and that does us a disservice.
I actually come from the plastic industry myself, and we always were saying that it's not about the packaging, that the packaging is not the problem, it's the recycling of the packaging is the problem, really. And
correct. And the view of packaging is about which lens you choose to look through. You know, paper has a very high water content, water footprint. Plastics, you know, poor on energy use, but it's about balance, it's about optimization, and it's such a, dare I say, technical argument when you look at the choices available. You've got to pick your poison, but the fundamental role is to protect and preserve the carbon that's already been used in producing the product. If you take a steak, for example, a steak from a cow, all the carbon footprint is in feeding the cow and the transport of the cow to the slaughterhouse. And if you look at the carbon footprint of that, 3% contribution to the carbon footprint comes from the packaging. 14% comes from you just keeping it in your fridge at home. So we've got the message wrong somewhere along the line. The media's got the wrong end of the stick, and we're just focused on, I just seen today, the Welsh government's come out and they're banning single-use plastics, and we're going to ban plastic sticks on cotton buds. And I'm like, you know, we're fiddling while Rome's burning. That makes bugger all difference to what's going on in the environment today. So, yeah, it's a challenging one. And I could talk for hours on it, and I won't.
I could tell. So where does it all go? What do you think?
Good question. And here is the issue. The issue is the infrastructure we have globally for waste. What we have are what they call single stream or single material waste streams around the world. Today, we do recycle packaging. About 50% of corrugate and paper packaging is recycled. But because we've not invested for many, many years sufficiently in the recycling structures in the UK, we have relied up until recently for waste to be exported out to Asia, where technically you've got lower paid people who are prepared to sort it. We all know that's false. What's been happening is been dumped in oceans and rivers in countries that have even worse infrastructures than we do. And just to put context on that, I'm not sure of the actual stat, but I know I'm up and about the right number. I believe there's over 160 different recycling systems in the UK alone. So we have a massive problem in waste management. Our job in packaging is to minimize the resources we're using in the first place and optimize them from a recycling and use perspective. But outside of that, we have a general infrastructure issue in managing waste, whether that be household goods, clothing, food, whatever it is. And as I said, food waste, we have a huge problem in Europe. Millions of tons are going to waste when we've actually got 2 billion people on the planet that can't get sufficient food or clean water. So again, we've got the balance wrong.
Okay. So it's just an education exercise for the next couple of decades, I guess, to educate people how to behave and what to do with the packaging.
That's coming through. We're certainly doing it in the schools. I think, you know, kids are far more aware of their responsibility towards the environment. I think it's my generation that's a bit weak. But we certainly have not got joined up thinking, both from a governmental and industrial level and a waste infrastructure level. We're all fighting with each other, and that does nobody any good.
Yeah.
End of.
Okay. So again, we are from printing industry. So can you tell us whether commercial printers can get into packaging with the improvements in digital or inkjet? Can they do it easily?
It's not easy, that's for sure. I think the starting point is to understand where digital is today. It's certainly making inroads in packaging, which is probably the technology that most commercial printers would look to come in with. But it's had its successes and it's had its failures. We saw big pressure around personalization of packaging 2 or 3 years ago, when we sort of all got very excited by personalized Coke bottles and the mosaic print from HP and this type of thing. That's lost its way, other than in kind of niche type applications. But then where digital has really taken off is labels. So labels and packaging tend to go side by side as industry sectors and have very different, very similar technologies. Digital's really found a home in labels, and labels tend to have multiple, it's like combination printing. You know, they'll use a number of techniques to get the high impact graphics and finish that they're looking for. The big corrugated boys are certainly investing in digital, but it's had mixed success to date. Flexo, and I have to be a Flexo fan wearing my AFIA hat though. Flexo's quality standard has come up over the last decade to unbelievable levels. You would struggle to tell the difference between Flexo and gravure nowadays. So for me, if you're a commercial printer, labeling is the easiest in the sense of being narrow web and drop-in technology. The packaging industry, though, is segmented. So for folding carton, you've got to be proficient in litho and a bit of flexo. Flexibles, labels are all flexo in the UK. So my view is, if you want to get in, it has to be a combination of flexo and digital to be set up for the future. If you have a good flexo press with digital capability, you're set up to pretty much service the vast majority of the market. But don't kid yourselves, it's incredibly competitive. There's some very clever business models out there, and some very strong networks that supply the big boys. And there's also a structure to the market. What you've got is a pyramid. You know, you've got your Amcors and Covarises at the top of flexibles, and the DS Smiths and Smurfit Kappas at the top of the corrugated and carton board industry. But below them is a huge market that is really ripe for consolidation, to be honest with you. There's a lot of mopping up to be done in the sector. So somebody else coming in, you've got to come in with something unique if you're looking at this market.
Okay.
It's not easy.
Can we talk about Industry 4.0? Because that is one of the key parts, I think, in packaging. I thought, it kind of, it's very popular when you read about Industry 4.0, that it's kind of connected to packaging. So does this embrace packaging well?
Yeah, I think Industry 4.0 is really going to be a turning point in the industry. So anybody who's not investing at the moment may fall away in the next few years. So Industry 4.0, in terms of the packaging industry today, is literally about automating the process from specification, concept to shelf, let's call it that. So today's world, you could be designing artwork in New York, having your flexo plates made in Birmingham and printing in Poland. And if you're not careful, you can accrue huge amounts of cost, waste in that process if it's not managed digitally. So, the big boys are all automating their workflows depending on the print technology that they're using, and linking the brand clients that they're working with to their pre-press houses or internal pre-press departments, handling the repro side, through to the press, and then through to the customer in terms of the shelf. And they are having complete visibility of the specification, the job, where it is, what's it at, the approval process in terms of the brand getting involved. and automating from start to finish, to the point that we're at now with certain players, we're at touchless ordering systems. So if they need a repeat job, they're literally clicking their own portal, ordering the job, and it's going all the way through to plate production without anybody even touching it, and then onto the printer with a similar order. So I think, and I'm probably out there a little bit, I don't think people are thinking about it as deeply as perhaps I am, because I'm working with some of the people that are involved in this, but my gut is digitalization is going to change the game completely for this industry. And if you're not investing in digital workflow management and automating and connecting your ecosystem that you work in, you're very quickly going to be left behind, because the pressure on the packaging industry and its customers, so from the retailers and the brands, they're all under cost pressure, they're all under competitive pressure, they're all trying to be sustainable. If you're not addressing that with automated, connected, simplified processes and systems, you're going to be left behind in the next 10 years. And I think fewer guys recognize that, and that they're making moves. We're definitely seeing more touchless process going on, but there's a lot more to be done. And I think some of the older characters in the industry may fall away as they fail to adopt it. I feel like I'm talking a lot. Is there any questions out there? I feel
There's
like I'm
thousands of questions already, but I have a couple more, and then I'll hand over to Kelvin. I wouldn't be myself if I didn't ask you about personalization. So is it packaging personalization a viable thing?
It is very viable. The problem is the complexity of the supply chain. So printing personalized packaging, that's the easy bit, to be honest with you. It's fulfilling the job that is the problem. To the point that I've seen, I did a quick presentation at Packaging Innovations earlier this year on personalization, and the printer had ended up packing and filling the job for the client because they just couldn't handle the supply chain of it. And that's the challenge. And I think actually that's a great space for, you know, the likes of V-Press and you guys to be coming into the market, because if you can solve some of the supply chain complexity issues that the packaging industry struggles with, there's definitely opportunities. What I would say is, I think everybody's seen the name on the can, the name on the chocolate bar. We're all a bit jaded by that. And HP did a great job with their mosaics campaigns, but again, it's kind of been and gone. So the next generation of personalization, as you're describing it, is really sort of the, what do I call it? Not active and intelligent, but I'll call it intelligent packaging, but that's not the right description. It's having the packaging as a key part of the marketing mix, and the brands and retailers truly using the packaging to connect their online profile. And I'll give you an example of that. Coke with the mosaic system with HP. So they put out all the, I'm presuming you all know the HP mosaic, but you could have these individual bottles designed with all the permutations of a single design. You bought the bottle of Coke, you went home, you put your personal ID number that was on the bottle, and that was your personal design. And you could then buy a key ring, a baseball cap, a t-shirt in that design. And that's where Coke made the money, not on the individual bottles. In fact, you can still buy the bottles on eBay for about $60 now. So I think that's where kind of digital and personalization is heading. To give you context on that, with the brands today, they still don't recognize the strength of packaging in the market mix always. So when you look at a typical retailer, for example, they'll have 15 food scientists for their own label food products, but they'll have 1 or 2 packaging technologists. They don't get the power that packaging has in selling the product. And that needs to change if packaging is really going to fulfill its potential. But I think the brands that are on their game really get that consumers are seeking experiences now, not just a product experience. And they want to connect the brand loyalty and the brand value to the consumer. And the way to do that, the easiest way to do it, is through the packaging. And just look at Apple. I was chuffed to bits. I shared it on LinkedIn. We all know the Apple box experience, that slide of the box open, and only Apple has managed to do that. It's incredible. I've put a video on LinkedIn if you look at my profile. They understand engineering packaging. We keep our Apple boxes. It's like a luxury item that we store in the cupboard. And they understand that packaging is marketing their product, not just the product once you start using it. So the more I think brands start to understand that, we will see more personalization and more digital printing as a result.
Okay, that Makes sense. So in this case, where's the development of the packaging going? Is it only that way, that direction, sort of shorter runs and more personalized, or are there any different kind of trends?
The two major themes that I see, one is the packaging experience that I've just described, that integrated marketing strategy utilizing packaging at its core. The other strand I see is very much, and the obvious one is sustainability. Brands and retailers are getting hit over the head with their sustainability credentials and being knocked when the packaging isn't doing what the consumer expects. So, you know, there was a lot of format switching in the 6 months prior to lockdown. Interestingly, we saw a lot of plastic packaging emerge in lockdown, and that was basically because it was perceived as hygienic. So we have seen some brands revert to their old patterns. But if you say to me, where's the kind of key two themes, it's very much about how do I stand out on shelf and online now? So it's that omni-channel retailing complexity that's driving some of the experience. How do I create the opening experience in the home? So the days of you just getting a brown box, even though that's all you see from Amazon at the moment, those are going to move forward. You're going to see far more creative packaging for your online products that you're buying, because you know, I always joke, you buy a pair of Boss boxer shorts and it comes in a grubby brown box, and yet you bought something luxury and you're kind of excited to open it and you get this brown bit of tissue in there in a horrible brown box. So I think there's going to be a lot of innovation in that space to cope with that omni-channel retailing experience. And then secondly, it's sustainability, is really being able to put your head up and say, we've done everything right and here's why. And that's what's driving the market at the moment.
Cool. Thank you very much. Well, it's half an hour now, so I'll hand it over to you guys, because I guess you've had thousands of questions.
Just before we go into that, Joe, it was really interesting you mentioned about the Apple boxes, because that's come up a couple of times when we've talked about the user experience with print and packaging. And Craig Smith, who's on the call, collects all his old Apple boxes and stores them under his bed. That's kind of fetish.
No, but it is. It's that value and the quality of that box, and actually opening that box. And even if you come to sell it, if I was selling a MacBook here or something like that, if you've got the box, it increases the value. The value of it is increased to the second-hand value. So yeah.
They put on the corrugate or whatever it is that slides. That's you know, it'll just slide away. The engineering that's gone into that is unbelievable. But there's a video that their latest iPhone, I think it was, that they released, was all about the packaging, the unboxing experience, rather than the iPhone. They showed this sort of anticipation of the box opening. It's fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And very good graphic.
Yeah. I'll just put in the chat there. There's the YouTube channel Unbox Therapy, and that's what he does. Just unboxes tech. Just tech, and you talked about the experience of these. I think it was a McLaren phone, and the engineering that went into that box when you actually opened it was absolutely unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah. But it can literally, I know it's sad because I'm a packaging geek, but it can almost give you butterflies in the stomach when you see something work well. It's great, as opposed to like hacking into the pair of scissors that have been, you know, put in one of those thermos seals with cardboard. You can't rip it open. So yeah, it is amazing when it's done well, but we see too often badly designed packaging and, you know, this wrap rage, as they call it. So
it always depends what's in the box, doesn't it, Joe? It does for the butterflies. So we got some questions coming through. So from Robert. Robert, how do you work with bricks and mortars on shelf placement, the footprint? Robert, what do you mean by that? I thought I'd better hand it over to you.
Sure. Again, in my background, I worked with a lot of companies, I'm going to say primarily Nestle and Apple, that the planogram, I don't know if that's a British term, but the planogram, okay, for shelf placement, we had to work directly with, in some cases, Walmart and a variety of other big box retailers on how much shelf space things were going to take up. So the packaging design was really driven by what the retailers would say, this is the space that you can use, this is how many facings that we want. So the design really followed, I'm going to say, functional requirements on that placement. That's where we identified the greatest value because it was in the redesign, the production design of it, because different retailers had slightly different requirements. So the same box wouldn't necessarily be manufactured for every single retailer. Certainly Nestle was in that case, in the different size containers that they would have for that. So, you know, these were factors that came into the manufacturing process. Where in packaging do you see the value of that? What is the interface that you saw? I know how it worked with Walmart and with Apple, which was held in great security, by the way. This impacted what a manufacturing company could do, and in fact, it meant that 5 or 6 different manufacturing entities, the printers, I'll call them, got the work because they would manufacture for the different brick and mortar. And I just wonder if you could speak to that a little bit in your experience.
It's exactly the same here. There's no difference. In fact, Walmart owns Asda here, so it's very, very similar. I think the biggest change that we've had is we have retail ready or shelf ready packaging systems here. So there was a lot of work done looking at the loading of shelves and trying to eradicate staff time in terms of actually loading up. So what we get is these trays that you just can load up with, I don't know, 20 products on it. So rather than the negotiation on the pack size being around the brand and shelf space, it was then the number of shelf ready trays that you could have and then fitting onto the shelf ready tray. It's all about kind of driving efficiency in store. That's obviously less restricted now. We've moved into the online space. To give you a sense of it, about 18% of grocery retailing, for example, pre-COVID was online. It's been as high as 65% on a couple of days over the COVID period, but it's dropped down, I think, now to about 35%. So the challenge is, yes, shelf space, and these brands are buying that space, by the way, if anybody didn't realize. You don't just get to put your product in with these guys, you buy the shelf space, and then you can optimize into the shelf ready system depending on the product that you've designed. So it's not as strict as you're describing in terms of shape of pack and size of pack. That they certainly want a limited number of SKUs, but it tends to work to the shelf ready packaging rather than the pure pack size on shelf. But that fundamentally all relates to money. How much shelf space are you prepared to buy? And it's big bucks, as I'm sure you're aware.
Oh yeah.
So Joe, just to be clear on that, so I wasn't aware of that. So when you go to the supermarket, so in France, it's expensive bottles of wine at the top and cheap bottle of wine at the top and at the bottom, and I'm always going down for the cheap ones at the bottom. But in the UK, what you see at the shelf at eye level, is that like a premium position for packaging? Is it to put your products? And they charge.
Yeah. You can pay 100 grand for some shelf space with one of the retailers before you even get a product in there to sell. Oh, it's horrendous.
Can I make an observation on that? The supermarkets, my uncle owns a chain of them. Supermarkets are very much in our family. The process within UK hasn't been bit by that as much as I'm aware of in the big chains. What they do at eye level, Kelvin, is they focus on the things that sell most and quickest. And as you walk down an aisle, you will find that your arms can reach easily the stuff that they sell the most. And it's all about putting stuff in your trolley. They don't give a damn what product it is, but they know the ones you're going to buy most of.
You learn something new every day. Every day.
They're constantly looking at the planograms based on, as you say, what's selling. And if somebody's marketing and they've got it in the wrong, if somebody's independently promoting their product and they have a spike in it, they will move it to a more appropriate place to get the sale. They do eye tracking devices. So they do constant consumer tests with eye tracking devices. So they're looking where you're looking in the store. But that's also down to pack level. So they'll give consumers a pack and get them to look at it and say what they think about it. And they're watching what they're picking out on the graphic design as well. So it's really quite sophisticated now in terms of managing your experience in store and driving you to the promotions of what they want you to buy.
I'm always trying to outwit them, but obviously I fail. Another good question from Robert. Packaging design innovation. Is it driven by marketing or through engineering, research and development? How do they talk to each other?
you know, it's almost like the arts and the sciences coming together, and the graphic designer sometimes can come up with a wonderful idea in terms of shelf standout, but the realities of engineering it can be completely different, and optimizing it. And you're absolutely right, you know, you're optimizing your packaging not just for sort of consumer ergonomics and stand out for sale. It's got to run down a line, it's got to box effectively, it's got to ship effectively, it's got to work with the automated transit systems that are out with the big warehouses. So good brands, good retailers have those two working intrinsically together. Many struggle. You'll see iterations after iterations. What I would say though is that's where Industry 4.0 is really kicking in nowadays, because they're 3D modeling everything. They're not mocking up anymore. They're building. You can automate the whole process from design to palletization and optimize everything with software so that you don't even have to mock up.
This was a big issue. If I just talk about it, when RFID was introduced as an inventory tracking system, along with a restocking system, for them to do it, for the packaging people to start to integrate the RFID, they began tracking it from a shipment off the truck onto the loading dock, through the doors into the retail environment, out through the cash register. And so that became a huge component of what had to be integrated into the design as well. There's a lot of technology that now is imposing itself into the packaging arena. Well, it has been. I mean, it's historic at this stage. But I would even include something like a QR code into that, as well as added value packaging, if there is the online supportive components to it. It's been an issue because QR has kind of revived itself a little bit.
Thank you, Robert. Deborah, you had a question? You have done.
Yes, I do. Thank you so much. Hi, Joe.
Hi.
Thank you so much for the information. I did a podcast a few weeks ago with a gentleman who works at Fortis Packaging Solutions in the United States. And he was saying that there is this like situation now has been created with those like clamshell plastic packages that have plastic on the outside but cardboard on holding it together, and the information actually is incorrect about the recycling, because technically the back would be one recycling thing and the front would be another recycling thing. And he's kind of saying that we're confusing people. That it technically, the information on that type of hybrid thing should be that this is not recyclable. So I was just wondering, like, if you feel that that's a trend that's coming and how the industry can address it so we're not seen as hypocrites.
No, it's happening a lot. We're seeing a lot of the paper boys getting into chilled and ambient with either coated boards or papers or laminated, and what they're suggesting is that you strip the plastic, the board can be recycled and the plastic goes in the bin. The plastic is probably recycled as well, recyclable. It's just that the recycling structures of PE, PP, PET are all recyclable. It's just the local authorities here don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to identify it. They don't have the single streams for it, other than PET. So, well, that's a lie. PE gets collected in milk bottles and also through carrier bags and local collection stores in supermarkets. PET is the only pure plastic polymer closed loose system in the UK today. And this is what makes me giggle, is your Coca-Cola bottle and water bottles that have been absolutely slated in the media. That is your only pure, fully recyclable, food-driven waste route in the UK. All of those bottles are flaked, chopped, cleaned, and they go back out to the likes of Kluckner Pentaplast and Fairplast, and they're used in your meat trays. So that is a great example of closed loop, how it can work, but that industry's been knocked. But no, I see the pressure on the industry to develop more products based on renewable materials or recyclable materials, but it is creating further complexity in packaging, trying to feed what is an already difficult infrastructure situation.
Right. It's
and consumers were confused before all of this, never mind
correct.
now, you know.
And that's kind of like where the discussion, it's coming down to a credibility issue, because those companies obviously put recycled, recyclable, or the symbols on it, and technically they're not lying, but it's not really, the people who deal with the other side of it are like, no, we can't actually deal with this. So, from a branding perspective of the industry, which is kind of like where I come from, like how are we being perceived by the world? Right now, if they don't have faith that what they have is actually recyclable, those millennials and Gen Zers are not going to trust us, and that might be a problem moving forward. Thank you very much.
No problem. No problem.
Okay, so we've still got plenty of questions in the chat going on. So there's another one from Mark Stevenson. Most presses will print folding carton board. Would you advise a commercial printer to get into packaging to secure their future?
If you've got good design capability and you understand crash locks and all the fantastic different solutions that the folding carton boys put out there at the moment, then go for it. What I would say is the folding carton market is actually a market that's fairly consolidated. You've got the likes of Graphic Packaging, MPS, these boys, that it out of all the markets, well, metal and glass are the most consolidated markets in packaging. And then I would say probably folding carton, because it's a lot of long run work. But yeah, if you think you've got the capability to do it and you've got the design flair, probably a good place to start.
Good answer. So another question, short run packaging and direct to object technology insights. What do you think?
I've started to see the seeds of direct to object. It's typically been in the glass and metal industry, but it is coming through. And I laughed, actually. I saw an example on LinkedIn a few weeks ago where somebody was promoting this label-less bottle that would be superb for recycling with direct-to-object printing. But then somebody kindly pointed out, well, where's the nutritional information? And I'd love to see somebody put all that tiny, tiny text in direct to shape. It is a trend. It's not easy to do. It's 0.0001% of the market at the moment. It's not broadly talked about, but for anybody who's getting paranoid about designing sustainable packaging, it's certainly part of the narrative today.
So plastic bags or paper bags?
I'd go play plastic every time.
You would go plastic?
They did a study on it. Did you not see it?
No. I'm a typical middle-aged northern male. I just get told what to do in my life. I don't make any decisions.
What you've never seen is that, we ban plastic bags, carrier bags at supermarkets, right? Did anybody look at the bin liner sales when they banned plastic bags? What were you doing with your plastic bags when you had them?
I don't know.
You weren't chucking them in the bin. You were recycling them. You were using it for lining dustbins and storing stuff in your kitchens. They weren't just being thrown away, and actually they were incredibly lightweight and thin. Now, again, I'm not going to argue fossil fuels with you. We all know the argument on that, and I won't go there. But there was actually a full analysis done on paper versus plastic bags, and in terms of impact on the environment, the plastic bag came out better. So I'll try and dig that study out and send it to you. It went in the news.
Share it on LinkedIn, or share it with, let us know and we'll share it on our pub. Yeah.
I try not to get too controversial, even though I'm a plastics person, because I work for both sides of the industry, and I'm pro packaging. I'm not getting into the material debates, but I do stand up for plastics when there's incorrect information out there.
Whenever you watch American TV, they've always got a paper unbranded bag, when they're carrying it off. They think they're ahead of us by having something better, but you say plastic, so we'll listen to you. So, okay, some more questions.
But isn't that an issue that is, forgive me, Joe, almost irrelevant? Because right now, fashion says use paper, don't use plastic, and the print industry is very good at flexing its muscles and moving to what's needed best. So, hey, let's print some paper bags. Surely that's more relevant than what's right or wrong for the time being, isn't it?
It's fine. And as you said, all the flexible packaging boys, they were all doing masses and masses of plastics, and things like chocolate where you need a metallization layer for anti-light, this type of thing. Very few of that has moved at this point, but they have just switched into paper and are producing paper versions. It's not really created any chaos for the market, let's put it like that. And you're right, they will do what the market demands, and if it's paper, it's paper. It's fine.
Okay.
But it doesn't have the properties of plastic for certain applications, and that's why we're not seeing wholesale move away.
Okay, so a question from David Pittman. How does the packaging industry unite to suit the circular economy and packaging waste at end of life? I hope I've got that correct, David.
Yeah.
How does the packaging industry unite to suit the circular economy and packaging waste at end of life? Is that correct, David?
Yeah. Back earlier on, Joe, you talked about how the different packaging industries sectors are doing themselves a disservice by the kind of at war, plastics and film and glass and tin. The narrative, actually the much more holistic view about sustainability and the environment and actually the value in packaging, how do they all come together as one, as the packaging industry, to go out to communities? Actually, it's not one or the other, because one can be good, one can be bad, that could be bad, that could be good. How do they all come together and actually say, well, this is actually how we solve the issue of what we've got here, which is really waste and end of life, because packaging isn't walking itself into the ocean, it's how we're handling waste. And as you say, we've got so many different ways in the UK alone of dealing with waste. How do we as an industry go out and go, actually, this is what we're doing?
I don't think there's any one body or group at this point that represents the interests sufficiently to solve the problems. There's organisations like IOM3, Packaging Collective, Packaging Society, but that you've got such strong lobby groups, BPIF on the print side, you've got BPF on the plastic side, BCF on the coating side, FEA for Flexo. And I know Debbie's on the call somewhere. Debbie works with GPMA, IPIA, and tries to sort of create joined up thinking, but actually representing the processes and the substrates, because it is a very complex industry. And to become united around packaging as a good thing hasn't happened. And that's the key gap. And that's why it feels like a battle there's just no army that's pulled together to say, hold on a minute, these are the challenges. We've just got these lone voices that pop up every so often, including myself, trying to correct some myths and say the right things to get balance, because all packaging has environmental virtues. It's just which lens you want to look through and which application you're dealing with. And I think if we could get somebody, C-Flex has popped up for the flexible packaging industry, driving circular economy for flexible packaging. It's just another body dealing with another set of issues. But we haven't got a body, in my mind, that is representing the industry in entirety to drive the industry forward. And I'm not volunteering to lead it either.
So, Mark Stephenson, good question. I heard that hybrid flexo and digital presses are the worst of both worlds. Do you agree? Mark, have I asked that question correctly? You're on mute.
Off my button. Yes, I did hear someone. There were probably someone who didn't make hybrid presses. They either made digital or they made flexo. But they said when you put the two together, it just becomes the worst of both worlds. So stick with one or the other, or have both. But I don't know. I don't make either. Either.
From certain players that they sell like hotcakes. I haven't, having that sort of what I'll call combination printing, certainly in the label industry, is common. But again, I'm going to put my Flexo hat on, which is really kind of the main tech for packaging today. I think it's 80% of all packaging is printed Flexo today. I might be completely wrong with that, but it's a very high proportion. Flexo has become such a high quality solution for both short and long run. It runs incredibly short run economically as well as long run. It's made the role of digital fairly small unless you've got something nichey and almost like personalization, one-off runs, which digital does very well. There's even technologies like data laser marking, where you can have every individual pack done automatically. Again, hasn't really broken through into the market. But yeah, I couldn't comment on whether the hybrid presses are fit for purpose or not. I think it's early days in relative terms, actually.
I can, and I'm biased, just to put it up, because we make both. When we started off, we thought we were only ever going to sell roll-to-roll, and now we sell more hybrid than we sell roll-to-roll.
Yeah.
Because the reality is you can't do everything digitally. You can't do off-gamut colours, this kind of thing, on a digital press. You can't do metallization on a digital press. and some of the inks are a lot cheaper in a flexo process. So a hybrid process allows you to have a lower cost piece of business, but it depends on the business you're doing.
Yeah.
It suits some people's profile of work and not others.
Yeah, yeah. Where are you from, Lee?
Oh, I'm from the UK, but I work for an international company. I'm from Domino.
Okay, okay. No, I saw Mark Andy's press recently, and it looks a great piece of kit, and particularly if somebody was coming into the market and needed to sort of fit the majority of applications in the market, it looks superb. But I don't know that the print quality enough to comment, but it seems to be a way to meet the needs as they're emerging, because the market's emerging at the end of the day.
You have to have the right flexo system though. Combining a slow changeover flexo system with a digital press is a really bad idea, and there are some out there. If you get a fast changeover flexo press with a digital press, that's a completely different story.
So, another question here, by the way, Lee, great pizzas. I had one of yours last night. From Enric Kroll to everyone, any ideas on liquid packaging recyclability and paper bottles? This was one of my questions, because when I was a child, we used to have a deposit on bottles to go back, and people used to make sure that they went back into the system. And we hear lots of different things about new materials like carrier bags made out of grass in Tibet or whatever they are. Have you got any ideas on that, liquid packaging, making them more recyclable and things like that?
Take it back a step. The challenge fundamentally is that flexible packaging, which is what we're talking about here, or if we're talking about bottles, let's deal with the flexible packaging side of liquid packaging. So this is the sort of thing that you get with detergent pouches and that type of thing. Or the main problem is to get the functional characteristics of the packaging that you need. Sometimes, and I'm not exaggerating, you can get 11 or 12 different materials co-extruded or laminated to create the functionality needed, which is things like gas barriers, light barriers, aroma barriers, moisture barriers, etc. To suggest that we can recycle something like that, personally, I think is farcical, and there is a flexible packaging C-Flex saying, recyclable packaging is, flexible packaging is fully recyclable, blah, 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 blah. The reality is we've got a poor infrastructure at the moment, and it's just trying to deal with single streams. When we get into chemical recycling, where we can start to just absorb this type of material back, strip out the polymers, and then recreate virgin materials again, I think that's perfectly viable. But you're looking at adhesive materials, you could have a metal in there, you could have PP, PE, PET. I just don't see how we make it recyclable other than going back to basics. And I'll just throw in, which is why I tend to be controversial, is, we look at areas like Scandinavia as being sustainable and hold them up as, the future of where we want to be as a green economy. They use huge amounts of incineration for their waste and power all their cities based on waste. And we don't do that. We've got a not in my backyard syndrome in the UK. We build very few incineration or, waste facilities based on incineration. And we're not using what is non-recyclable to then power our cities as energy. So actually using the fossil fuel that was used in the first place to create power, which it just doesn't seem logical to me. But yeah, liquid packaging, nightmare in terms of the only types of recyclable flexible packaging we're seeing coming out at the moment are things like PE, so laminating two polyethylenes together, one as a seal layer and one as a barrier. That enables it to be mixed with carrier bag waste. That's the only thing I've seen in the last 12 months that has taken flexible packaging that direction.
Okay, just getting through the questions. If anyone else has got a question, by all means let us know. I've still got some more here. How practical are Aqueous, I've got dyslexia, I'm going to really struggle here. How practical are Aqueous coatings to replace barrier films, so helping improve recyclability of, say, food service industry? That's from Gareth.
Some of them are fantastic. We're seeing quite a lot of developments out of the like of graphic packaging. Mondini, a big tray supplier, has been promoting a product that can be used in the meat industry. So some of the coatings are really quite sophisticated, enabling that type of application. Taken a lot of research and development, still got a long way to go, but I think there's been some real moves forward in that sector with aqueous coatings.
Right, brilliant. What is an aqueous coating? I don't know what it is. Sorry.
Coating, water-based coating, but it has a a polymer in it that enables it to resist moisture or whatever you want it to resist, you know, oxygen, ethylene, whatever.
Okay, so we've just whizzed through an hour there. It went really quick. There was a lot discussed there. Does anyone have any final questions you want to ask Jo while she's here? No, I think we managed to cover most of them off. Jo, thank you so much. That was really informative. I learned a lot anyway. So, and now plastic bags over paper bags all the way. So once again, thank you everyone. It's only an hour, but we managed to cram an awful lot in. We're back next Thursday, 3:30, when we're joined by Morton from English, and we're talking on priorities in print. So that's going to be really interesting. Also, on Tuesday and Wednesday, we've got the IPIA punchback print event, where some of the things that we've discussed here on how printers market themselves are being put into action. We're actually running a session where we're going to a customer and we're showing them what the print industry collectively can do, and taking that, it's a charity in this case, and taking them online and trying to drive more revenue through to them. And it's all got the measurables at the end of that. We've been filming it today, and it's really good. In just a couple of days, we can help a company or an organisation if the print is done in a special way. So that's good. Please follow us, The Crown, on LinkedIn. As I said, we'll be back next Thursday. Thank you very much for your support. We'll keep coming as long as you keep turning up. And it's been great once again. Thank you all. Stay safe. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, guys, and see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Very good.